Now let's all take a deep breath, because the last thing we saw was Kevin dropping a nuclear bomb on the coffee table. The man flew across the world, walked into a Korean Mafia boss's house, announced he never signed the final divorce papers, then asked, which one of us is actually her husband? Sir, that is not an icebreaker. That is terrorism. The room froze. Nobody knew what to say. Then Anaya stood up, tiny, 5 years old, a menace, a threat to society. The child looked around the room like she was preparing to deliver a presidential address, then pointed directly at Min Wook. I vote for Daddy. Kevin blinked. What? I vote for him too, Adrian said. Kevin looked like somebody had unplugged his soul. Nadine immediately covered her face, because honestly, there wasn't enough oxygen in the room for this conversation. Anaya, she whispered. What? You can't just vote for fathers. Why not? Because that's not how fathers work. Anaya frowned. Then how did he become mine? Nobody answered, because unfortunately, that was a fantastic question. Meanwhile, Kevin was still trying to recover. Adrian, I'm your father. Yeah, but Min Wook taught me how to ride a bike and came to my soccer games and helped me beat level 12. Kevin was speechless. And he let me eat ice cream for breakfast once. That was an accident. Adrian pointed. Still counts. Kevin's face twisted. Then he smiled. Dangerous smile. Fine, I'm not giving up. He straightened. I've rented an apartment in this building. Min Wook blinked. People can rent apartments in this building? Mr. Chan nodded nervously. Yes, sir, the East Wing. I own rental properties? Yes, sir. In my own building? Yes, sir. Min Wook stared. No wonder I've been seeing unfamiliar faces. Somewhere in this building, a property manager is about to have the worst day of their career. Min Wook turned back to Kevin. Welcome to the building. Rent is due on the 1st. Mr. Chan immediately stood. I need coffee. And left. Coward. That man just abandoned the battlefield. Then Anaya walked over to Min Wook, leaned towards him, and asked with a big smile, Can Kevin stay for dinner? Wait a minute. I know that smile. Anaya's up to something again, and that's never a good sign. Now let's talk about how we ended up here. Before the betrayal, before Kevin became public enemy #1, before the woman named Crystal who thought gluten was a personality flaw, there was a Tuesday at a laundromat, the kind with fluorescent lights to make everyone look like a zombie. Nadine was 22, broke, tired, and trying to wash her emotional support wig in a machine that smelled like regret. The wig's name was Brenda. Don't ask. She put Brenda in the machine, added soap, turned it on, walked away. 2 minutes later, a man tapped her on the shoulder. A guy with a nice smile and a laundry basket full of socks. Ma'am, I think your machine is angry. Nadine looked. The machine wasn't angry. It was possessed. Suds were pouring out of it. Not a little bit of suds. A full-on horror movie-level suds explosion. It looked like the washing machine was trying to summon a demon. Nadine froze. I think I used too much soap. The man looked at the mountain of foam. You think? He helped her. Got towels, apologized to the owner, lied and said it was his machine. He was a hero, a very handsome, lying hero. His name was Kevin. He walked her out. The laundromat was now a bubble bath. Brenda the wig was still inside. Trapped. So, Kevin said, trying not to laugh, I'm Kevin. Nadine. I feel like I should buy you a coffee to make up for almost flooding the city. She smiled, a real smile. And that's how it started. Not with magic, with a soap-related disaster, which honestly is more romantic. They got married a year later. The wedding was small, the apartment was smaller, the love was huge. They built IKEA furniture, almost got divorced over a bookshelf, stayed up late watching bad movies. Then Adrian was born, and everything got louder and messier and better. Kevin was a good dad. He changed diapers. He did mid-of-the-night feedings. He let Adrian draw on his face with a marker he thought was washable. It was not. They were a team, a messy, tired, broke team, but a team. Then Anaya arrived, and for one perfect, beautiful, chaotic year, everything was okay. They were a family, in a tiny apartment with a crooked bookshelf and a wig that Kevin had framed in a shadow box as an anniversary gift. Nadine would look at them, Kevin on the floor letting the kids use him as a jungle gym, Adrian laughing, Anaya giggling, and she'd think, this is it. This is everything. She was happy, genuinely, deeply happy, the kind of happy that feels safe, permanent, like nothing could ever touch it. And that's the thing about happiness. It makes you forget the world is full of people named Crystal. That year, the perfect year, ended on a Tuesday.
Most heartbreaks do. They don't arrive with a storm, they arrive with a text message. It started with small things, things Nadine told herself were nothing. Kevin started working late, a lot. He bought a new gym membership, started talking about wellness and finding his center. He bought a blender, started making smoothies that smelled like grass and sadness. Nadine would watch him, confused. This is the same man who used to eat cold pizza for breakfast. Who is this person? Then he mentioned a new friend from his yoga class, a woman named Crystal. She's just a friend, Nadine. You're being paranoid. That's the thing about gaslighting. It makes you think you're the one who's crazy, that you're the one who's wrong for noticing the phone that's always face down, the late-night texts that get deleted, the way his eyes look right through you instead of at you. Nadine tried to ignore it, because she had 2 kids, a crooked bookshelf, a life they had built together. She wasn't ready for it to be over, so she pretended she didn't see the credit card statement with the charge for a hotel she'd never been to, pretended she didn't smell a perfume that wasn't hers on his shirt, pretended she didn't hear him whisper, "I love you too," on the phone in the other room when he thought she was asleep. She pretended so hard she almost convinced herself. Almost. The end came on a Thursday. Not with a fight, not with a tearful confession, with a text message. She was at the grocery store. Adrian was in the cart, trying to sneak cookies into the basket. Anaya was strapped to her chest, asleep. Her phone buzzed. "Kevin, I can't do this anymore. I've packed my bags. I'll have someone pick up the rest of my things next week." That's it. No explanation, no apology. Just an ending, delivered between the cereal aisle and the dairy section. She stood there, in the middle of the grocery store, holding a carton of milk, her phone in her other hand, and felt her entire world detonate in complete, devastating silence. She didn't cry, not then. She put the milk in the cart, paid for the groceries, drove home, put the kids to bed, and then, only then, in the quiet, empty dark of her apartment, she stood in the living room, looked at the crooked bookshelf they'd built together, and finally fell apart. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It arrives like a quiet Thursday, and then it takes everything. Let's start with the flight, because 11 hours is a long time to sit next to chaos. Crystal Martinez boarded that plane looking like a telenovela villain in training. 22, 7 weeks pregnant, lip gloss aggressive, hoop earrings large enough to receive satellite signals. She sat down next to a 45-year-old Korean-American woman who just wanted silence, peace, solitude. Crystal turned immediately. "Hi, I'm flying to confront my baby daddy." The woman blinked once, slowly. "Oh, he left me to chase his ex-wife in Korea. She's married to some rich Batman man, but it's fine. I'm not jealous. I'm spiritually evolved." The woman put in her earbuds. Crystal leaned across her. "Anyway, I'm pregnant, so technically I already won." Ma'am, nobody was competing, but Crystal believed in proactive victory. By hour 3, she had explained Mercury, karma, emotional alignment, and why men with trauma are projects. By hour 7, the woman was pretending to sleep. By hour 10, she was actually asleep. Crystal whispered anyway, "Men love me. It's a blessing and a burden." Now, let's address the question. Why would Kevin leave Nadine? Because Crystal is the kind of woman who laughs too loud at your jokes, who touches your arm when she talks, who says, "Aye, Poppy," like it's punctuation, who looks at you like you're the only man in the room, even if there are 17 men in the room, and she's already calculating which one has the highest credit score. It's called two-factor authentication. One baby daddy, one backup plan. Financial security is spiritual alignment. She landed in Seoul glowing, jet-lagged, hungry, still stunning. At baggage claim, she locked eyes with an older Korean businessman. He smiled politely. She smiled back, slower. "Oh, Korea is fun," she murmured. "Sir nearly missed his suitcase." See? Problem. By the time she reached Kevin's luxury building, security was already nervous. She didn't walk in. She entered. Hips first, confidence second, chaos third. "Hi," she said sweetly. "I'm here to see Kevin Dominic." The guard hesitated. She switched to Spanish under her breath. "Por favor, no me hagas pelear hoy." He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Dangerous. She leaned in slightly, soft voice, warm smile. "I flew 11,000 miles while pregnant. You are not stopping me." He handed her the visitor badge, immediately. Smart man. As the elevator doors closed, Crystal checked her reflection, adjusted her lip gloss, smiled. "Let's go get my man." Pause. "And maybe a richer one." Hurricane Crystal had arrived, and this time she brought competition. While their problem just arrived at the building looking for answers, the family was outside having the time of their lives, completely unaware, blissfully ignorant, dangerously happy. Let me explain. Saturday morning, Adrian announced, "We're going outside." Minwook blinked. Why? Anaya handed him a bright pink brochure, Seoul Couples Cultural Experience Tour. I am still trying to figure out where she got a brochure for a couples tour. I don't know who is more difficult to handle, a toddler who eats plastic bottle covers for breakfast the second you look away, or a 5-year-old like Anaya who knows so much she could probably negotiate a peace treaty or explain your own credit score to you. Child, she is 5 going on 45. Minwook looked at the brochure. No. Adrian pulled out his phone. Now, nobody bought this boy a phone. He probably manipulated one of Minwook's 250-pound lieutenants into lending it for a game and then just kept it. Adrian showed him a picture on the screen. It was a photo of Minwook smiling at Nadine while she was asleep on the couch. The internet would love this, Adrian said. Y'all, a 9-year-old just blackmailed a Mafia boss with a soft launch photo, successfully. 20 minutes later, they were on a bright yellow tour bus. The guide clapped. "Welcome, lovebirds." Minwook froze. The guide winked at Anaya. Anaya gave a thumbs up. First activity? Tandem bicycles. 1 bike, 2 seats, shared suffering. Minwook sat in the back like he was being transported to prison. "Pedal," Nadine ordered. "I am pedaling." "No, you're brooding. Pedal." She laughed, and for a second, Minwook forgot he was a criminal mastermind on a yellow bike. Then came the street food challenge, feeding each other without hands. Minwook looked at a spicy rice cake like it was a live grenade. Nadine leaned in, eyes sparkling. "What's wrong? Scared?" He leaned forward, serious, and their noses bumped. Nadine laughed so hard she snorted. The tour guide clapped. So much passion. By the time they reached pottery class, Minwook was a lost man. Nadine stood behind him, guiding his hands on the clay. "Relax," she whispered. His ears turned bright red, and the clay literally exploded. Anaya whispered to Adrian, "Write that down. Weakness identified." That night, Minwook stood in his office, feeling completely off balance. He called Mr. Chun. "Find me a consultant." "For the organization, sir?" "No," Minwook said, adjusting his tie. "For love, immediately. God help them all." Wait, stop, rewind. Remember that beautiful moment on the yellow bus, the pottery, the tandem bike, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, life was a romantic comedy? Yeah, that's gone. The lobby of the luxury complex looked like a telenovela audition gone horribly wrong. Kevin was standing by the elevators, looking like he'd aged 12 years in a single afternoon, and standing next to him was the problem. Crystal didn't just arrive. She manifested in the lobby like a high-voltage glitter bomb that smells like hibiscus and home-wrecking. She was wearing neon yoga pants, hoop earrings large enough to receive satellite signals, and enough lip gloss to be seen from the moon. Nadine walked in covered in pottery clay and sweat. Crystal stood there looking like she'd just been airbrushed by the universe. The silence was so heavy, I'm surprised the floor didn't crack. "So," Crystal said, her voice like honey and sandpaper, "this is the ex-wife." She looked Nadine up and down, mostly down. Nadine didn't even move. She just tightened her grip on her juice box. "And you must be the woman who thinks Mercury is a personality trait." Crystal laughed. Not a nice laugh. "I'm 22 and have no bills" laugh. "I'm Crystal, Kevin's fiancée and his future baby mama." The pregnancy bomb hit the room. Kevin looked at the ceiling like he was waiting for a sudden exit from the planet. Minwook stepped forward, still holding a red souvenir balloon from the tour. The feared Mafia boss, holding a balloon, looking like Batman on a budget. Anaya stepped between them. "Why are you loud? Your energy is very yellow." Crystal blinked. "Yellow? Yellow means you need a nap and a sandwich," Anaya said flatly. Adrian pulled out his borrowed phone. "I'm recording this for my documentary." The tension was at a breaking point. Minwook was trying to look intimidating while the balloon squeaked in his hand. Nadine was ready to choose violence. Kevin was busy being a ghost, and Crystal was already eye-rolling at Minwook's watch. "Is that a Rolex? It's very aggressive for your heart chakra."
Then the elevator doors slid open. A man stepped out, tan, sultry, smelling like expensive sandalwood in an Italian summer. This was Lorenzo, the love consultant. The man literally wrote the book on seduction for the soul. He looked at the Mafia boss. He looked at the clay-covered wife. He looked at the pregnant fiancée. He took a deep breath, adjusted his silk scarf, and said, "I see the blockage. We are simply suffering from a lack of communal intimacy. If we all just strip to our underwear and dance in the rain, our souls will align." The lobby went silent. Nadine, Min-wook, Kevin, and even Crystal turned at the same time. "Shut up!" they screamed in unison. The balloon popped. Well, one thing is certain. All hell is about to break loose.
You know what's more terrifying than a mafia boss? A mafia boss in love, because at least criminals have a plan. This man had nothing. No strategy, no backup, just desperation and a phone call to Mr. Chian that started with, "Find me someone who understands women." Which is how Lorenzo ended up in Min-wook's office on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing a silk scarf indoors and charging 50 million won per hour. Per hour. Mr. Chian nearly had a stroke. "Sir, that's excessive." "Wire it." Min-wook didn't negotiate, didn't counteroffer, didn't blink. The man who haggles over weapon shipments just agreed to pay a romance consultant more than some people's yearly salary. Child, he was down bad, relentlessly down bad. Lorenzo circled Min-wook like a lion, judging prey. "You stand like you are waiting for a funeral, signore." Min-wook pulled out a leather-bound notebook, started taking notes, actual notes, like this was a board meeting. What is the optimal stance for romantic engagement? Lorenzo stared, then laughed so hard his scarf nearly fell off. "Bellissimo! She is a woman, not a hostile takeover. Your flirting is basically a war crime." Min-wook's jaw tightened. His ears were already turning pink. "That is why you are here. Teach me." Lorenzo's sarcasm went into overdrive. "Fine, since you are so serious, here is a secret alpha technique. Women love a man who is unpredictable. Go to her. Stand exactly 3 inches from her back. Do not speak. Just breathe loudly so she knows you are present and powerful." Min-wook nodded, serious, focused. He didn't realize it was a joke. He doesn't know what jokes are. He thinks jokes are just poorly delivered facts. He went downstairs to Nadine's wing. She was in the kitchen making grilled cheese for the kids. Min-wook entered silently. He stepped up, 3 inches from her back, and just stood there, breathing like he just finished a triathlon. Nadine froze. She gripped the spatula tighter. Her heart started racing, because who just stands behind someone breathing like that? Robbers, serial killers, weirdos from horror movies. She spun around fast and swung hard. The spatula connected with Min-wook's forehead with a loud thwack. He staggered back. A small red lump immediately started forming on his head, a little apple, right above his eyebrow. Nadine gasped. "Min-wook!" He blinked slowly, stunned. "I was establishing presence." "You were establishing a concussion." The kids ran into the kitchen. Adrian saw the bump. Mom gave Dad an apple. Anaya started laughing so hard she fell on the floor. Min-wook retreated upstairs where Lorenzo was still laughing. "You did it! You actually did the breathing thing!" Min-wook didn't blink. His forehead was throbbing. "You are a fraud. You are fired. Leave before I have you removed permanently." Lorenzo grabbed his scarf and ran. Min-wook looked at Mr. Chian. "Get me another one." "Sir, a better one." "And Mr. Chian?" "Yes? Make sure he doesn't use sarcasm. I am an expensive man to prank." Mr. Chian cleared his throat nervously. "But sir, we just paid that one 50 million won." Min-wook's eye twitched, just once, dangerously. "Track him down." "Sir, I don't care if you have to follow him to Italy. Get my money back." Mr. Chian sighed nervously, added international money recovery to his growing list of responsibilities. God help them all. Now, let's address the question everyone has been asking. Why would Min-wook welcome Kevin into his home? Why would a mafia boss let his rival move into his own building? Was it kindness? No. Strategy? Maybe. Stupidity? Absolutely not. Here's the truth. Min-wook is the kind of man who gets bored sitting on a throne getting fat. He's a narcissist, the clinical kind, the kind who plots wars just to have something to do, the kind who sees a peaceful kingdom and thinks, "This is boring, let's add explosions." Kevin wasn't a threat. Kevin was entertainment. At the onset, it wasn't love at first sight with Nadine. It was curiosity. Then it was interest. Then it was desperation, because somewhere between the fake marriage and the movie nights, Nadine filled a void Min-wook didn't know he had. And now the king has his war. And the children? The children were adding gasoline to the fire. Monday morning, Kevin showed up with roses. Anaya intercepted him at the door. "Those are pretty," Kevin smiled. "Finally, a win." "Mom's allergic to roses," Anaya said flatly. Kevin's face fell. "But you could try chocolates. She likes the ones with caramel." Kevin nodded frantically, took notes, like a 5-year-old was his relationship consultant now. Tuesday, Kevin arrived with gourmet chocolates. Min-wook was already there, with a 3-tiered cake from a Michelin-star bakery that he'd flown in from Paris. Kevin stared at his chocolates, then at the cake, then at his life. A dream whispered to Anaya, "Should we tell Dad that Mom's lactose intolerant?" Anaya whispered back, "No, let him suffer." These children were menaces, beautiful, strategic menaces. Wednesday, the competition escalated. Kevin rented a violinist. Min-wook hired an entire orchestra. Kevin brought flowers. Min-wook bought a garden, an actual garden, with a fountain. Nadine stood in her bathrobe, coffee in hand, watching grown men compete like it was the Olympics. "Y'all need therapy," she said. But she was smiling, actually smiling. For the first time in weeks, she felt wanted, desired, fought for. And honestly, it felt good. Meanwhile, Crystal was watching from the sidelines, furious, confused, irrelevant. She came to Korea for Kevin. She was pregnant with his baby, and he was out here buying chocolates for his ex-wife like Crystal didn't exist. She tried to get Min-wook's attention. "Oppa, do you work out? Your shoulders are very aligned." Min-wook looked at her, blinked. "I have a meeting," and walked away. Girl, she wasn't just losing, she was invisible. That evening, Anaya updated the scoreboard in the living room where everyone could see it. Daddy points, Min-wook, 63, Kevin, 11, Crystal, -25. Kevin saw it. His eye twitched. "Why did I go up?" Anaya said you tried, kindly. Adrien didn't look up from his tablet. "Effort counts, barely." Min-wook saw his score. His ears turned red. He was winning, and he intended to keep winning. God help them all. Now, let's talk about the difference between talkers and listeners. Most people think conversation is about equal exchange. It's not. Some souls are built to speak. Others are built to receive. Nadine was a symphony of words. Min-wook was her willing audience. Every car ride, every shared moment, every stolen minute, her voice filled the space between them like music he didn't know he'd been missing. She talked about everything. Her childhood, her dreams, her fears, the way Adrian sorted his socks by color, how Anaya once tried to adopt a pigeon, the terrible coffee at her old job, the way rain sounded different in Korea. And Min-wook, he listened, really listened, asked the right questions at exactly the right moments, drew stories from her like a maestro conducting secrets. But tonight was different. Tonight, the apple-shaped bruise on his forehead demanded attention. "Sit," Nadine commanded, gesturing toward the low coffee table. Her voice carried that particular tone mothers use, the one that brooks no argument. Min-wook obeyed, because arguing with a woman holding a warm compress seemed strategically unwise. He settled onto the cushion, his knees angled awkwardly. Nadine moved behind him, then reconsidered, sat facing him instead. Close, too close. Her fingers traced the edge of the bruise with devastating gentleness. "This needs proper care," Nadine murmured, pressing the warm cloth against his skin. Min-wook's entire nervous system short-circuited. Every nerve ending suddenly became hyper-aware of her proximity. The warmth radiating from her skin, the soft scent of her shampoo, the way her breath whispered across his temple. His hands, seeking anchor, found her thighs, just resting. Nothing inappropriate, everything inappropriate. The heat of her through the fabric made coherent thought impossible. If someone asked him to add 2 + 2, he would have failed spectacularly. "You know," Nadine said softly, pressing the warm cloth against his skin. Her voice had dropped to that intimate register, the one reserved for confessions and midnight conversations. "I know nothing about you." Min-wook's breath caught, not from the pressure of the cloth, from the realization that her fingers had somehow found their way to his hair, threading through the dark strands with unconscious tenderness. "Nothing real," she continued, "just that you do boring things for fun and apparently get into fights with kitchen utensils." He should speak, form words, be articulate. Instead, he managed, "What do you want to know?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "Everything," she whispered. The word hung between them like a challenge, so he told her. About Paris, about parents who loved him but never quite saw him, about growing up in his twin sister's shadow, fighting for scraps of attention, about the competitiveness that grew from constantly proving himself worthy. "You love my sister," he said, surprising himself with the admission. But Nadine had stopped listening completely, because sometime during his story, his thumbs had begun tracing absent patterns on her thighs, small circles, unconscious, devastating. Her mind went deliciously blank. The wound had been tended minutes ago. The cloth lay forgotten. This moment stretched beyond medical necessity into something far more dangerous, something that made her pulse flutter in places it had no business fluttering. His voice became background music to the symphony of sensation. The way his eyes darkened when he looked at her, the barely restrained tension in his shoulders, the heat of his palms burning through fabric. Without conscious decision, her hand moved, traced the line of his jaw. His words died mid-sentence. Her finger found his lips, pressed gently, silencing him. Not because she didn't want to hear his story, because she needed him to understand what was happening between them without words. Their eyes met, held, spoke a language that had nothing to do with conversation. Her spirit shifted into dangerous territory. Autopilot, pure instinct. She leaned forward, slowly, deliberately. Their breaths mingled. His hands tightened on her thighs. Not possessive, reverent, like he was holding something precious he was afraid to break. The space between them became electric, charged with weeks of unspoken want. Her lips moved closer, closer, until they were a whisper apart, until the world narrowed to this moment, this breath, this inevitability. Then the door burst open. "Nadine!" Kevin, running, panicked, hair disheveled. "Crystal's gone. She packed everything and left a note saying she's going back to America and—" He stopped, saw them, the positioning, the proximity, the way they sprang apart like teenagers caught sneaking. Kevin's eyes widened. "Oh." Pause. "Oh." Longer pause. "I am so sorry. I didn't know you were—" He gestured wildly at the scene. "Whatever this is." Min-Wook cleared his throat, ears bright red. Nadine smoothed her hair, looking anywhere except at Kevin. Min-Wook snapped upright, his ears turning a shade of red that could stop traffic. "Mr. Chen!" Min-Wook bellowed as his voice echoed off the marble. "Mr. Chen!" Mr. Chen appeared in the doorway, clutching his chest. "Yes, sir?" "Why is there a Kevin in my living room?" Min-Wook shouted, adjusting his tie with shaking hands. "Why are the doors of this fortress functioning like a public library? Fire the security team. Burn the front gate. Replace the guards with a shark-infested moat. I want this man removed from my air supply immediately." Kevin backed away toward the door, hands raised. "I'll just go check the honey. For what it's worth, Batman, it's about time." The door slammed. Min-Wook stared at the wall, breathing like he'd just escaped a house fire, while Nadine picked up the cold compress to hide a grin. God helped them all. Nadine ran, not gracefully, not athletically, like a mother chasing a toddler near traffic. "Crystal!" The girl stopped at the gate, suitcases in hand, mascara streaking her face. She turned slowly. "Don't," Crystal whispered. "Please don't be nice to me. I can't handle nice right now." Nadine didn't stop. She pulled Crystal into a hug, a real one, the kind that says, "I see you." Crystal shattered, completely. "I messed up," she sobbed into Nadine's shoulder. "I messed up everything." "You're 22, Nadine said gently. "You're allowed to mess up." Crystal pulled back, eyes red and swollen. "I tried to steal your man, your life, your—" Nadine interrupted. "You were lost. I know what that feels like." She did, because a girl who grew up in foster homes, who knew neglect like an old friend, understood exactly how easy it is to lose your way when nobody teaches you the map. "If you need anything," Nadine said firmly, "you call me, especially if Kevin isn't ready to step up. You hear me?" Crystal nodded, tears streaming. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time since arriving in Korea, Crystal looked like what she really was, a scared kid who made bad choices and needed grace. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Kevin was staging his own goodbye. Badly. He stood in the living room, hands in pockets, looking like a man about to deliver a corporate presentation on his own failures. "I'm going back to America," he announced. Anaya looked up from her coloring book. "Because you lost?" Kevin's eye twitched. "Because I need to get my life together." Adrian nodded sagely. "That's what people say when they lose." Min-Wook, standing in the corner, didn't even try to hide his smile. Kevin took a breath. "I'm sorry. For everything. For showing up, for the chaos, for—" "The roses Mom was allergic to," Anaya offered helpfully. "The terrible chocolates," Adrian added. "The general audacity," Min-Wook suggested. Kevin glared at all of them, then laughed, because what else could he do? "Yeah, all of that." He looked at Nadine. "Take care of him." She nodded. Then Kevin looked at Min-wook. And you take care of her. Min-wook's ears turned red, but he nodded. Just as Kevin reached the door, Min-wook's phone rang. The ringtone was different, urgent. He answered immediately. His face changed instantly. When? He asked in Korean. Pause. How bad? Longer pause. He hung up slowly. Nadine noticed immediately. What's wrong? Min-wook looked at her. Then at the children. My father is sick, very sick. Silence. I need to go to Paris. Anaya stood up. Then we're going to Paris. Not a question, a declaration. Adrian nodded. Family trip. Nadine looked at Min-wook. He looked back. And for the first time since the phone call, he smiled. Small, grateful, terrified. Pack your bags, he said quietly. Well, there you have it. Y'all are not gonna let me sleep for an hour. I received notification threats disguised as loving comments. Now I'm pouring my brains out to satisfy your curiosity. I can't thank y'all enough for the support. Y'all are a blessing to this growing community. Also, do well to follow me on other platforms. You know the drill. I'm all ears. Pitch me those brilliant ideas. Peace out. Paris will be a beautiful disaster.